Hola chicos y chicas, ¿cómo estáis? Esta es una lección de gramática. Os voy a enseñar la conjugación de verbos reflexivos en el pretérito indefinido. La primera pregunta es, ¿qué es un verbo reflexivo? What is a reflexive verb? Let's begin. Now, a reflexive verb, here it is. This is the definition. What is a reflexive verb? In grammar, a reflexive verb is a verb whose direct object is the same as its subject. So basically, the subject and the object are the same. For example, let's go down a bit. I wash myself. Okay, that will be a reflexive verb. Of course, in English, you have the oneself, myself, yourself, himself, herself. Now, in Latin-based languages, like Spanish, we have a specific form for that. The form that reflexive verbs have is an SE at the end. Lavarse, for example, reflexive verb. And all of these, bañarse, levantarse, divorciarse, casarse. My students ask me, how do you know? Well, there are two ways of knowing. One, the teacher will tell you, this happens to be a reflexive verb. And the other way, you'll find out by yourself. I'll show you how. So, say you are doing some translation exercise and you want to say how to say to marry in Spanish. So you put here, go to Google. Google is good enough for me. To marry in Spanish. And look at this. It comes as casarse. Now, that SE ending means that is a reflexive verb in Spanish. And that means it's got to be conjugated like a reflexive verb, like the one we're going to do soon. Okay? Let's try other things. For example, if you were to put how to say to play in Spanish, and here it is, jugar. So that is not a reflexive verb, that is just an ordinary verb. And you go, you juego, and so on. So that's how you find out. If you go for the meaning, sometimes it could be misleading because you will say, well, to marry, why is it reflexive? In English, it's not. It's illogical, you will say, it is, you don't marry yourself. But as I said, Latin-based languages have that. We like reflexive verbs, and you have them in French and in Italian as well. So I would ask you just to accept them for now. You can't translate everything. You can't fight it. It's almost if you have to get into the mind of the Spanish speaker. There must be a reason why to marry is reflexive. I don't know why. It probably goes back all the way to the Roman Empire and some historical event. But we can't waste time investigating. Best thing to do is accept it and move on. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So let's go back now to the practicalities. So coming back to the example, you went on Google, you found out that marry is a reflexive verb in Spanish. You don't think it's logical, but as I said, don't think about it. Just go back to what it means being a reflexive verb in Spanish. What does it mean to you for your writing, for speaking, etc.? So let's go back to the handout. If you're my student, you will get this handout either as a physical copy or I will send it to you via WhatsApp. So let's go back to the handout. That's the handout. So as I said, that's just a starting point. We need to get over the idea that why is it a reflexive verb? You just have to accept it, con amor, yes? Accept it. And these are reflexive verbs that we're going to be using in the stories that I tell, in the listening comprehensions, etc. So the model verb is bañarse. I've done two things here. The AR is in red, just to tell you that this verb will be conjugated in the same way as any verb in the preterite that happens to be regular. But because it is reflexive, you need to have those little bits here. They are called reflexive pronouns. You've seen them before. If you think about them. You know the first lesson of Spanish? Me llamo, te llamas, se llama. Because that is a reflexive verb as well, llamarse. But in the pretérito indefinido, this is an AR verb. The endings will be the same, okay? Will be the same as a regular AR verb. You know, like, for example, bailé, bañé, bailaste, bañaste, bailó, bañó, bailamos, bailamos, bañamos, bailasteis, bañasteis, bailaron, bañaron, the same. All you have to do is to put those reflexive pronouns, yo me, tú te, él se, ella se, usted se. Nosotros nos, vosotros os, ellos se, ella se, ustedes se. And that is the implication of going on Google and finding that the verb you're looking for ends in SE. That is the marker. The SE ending is the marker of the reflexive verbs in Spanish. Let's move on. I've got a list here of all these verbs that happen to be regular and reflexive. So if I were to ask you to conjugate the verb, say, levantarse, you will go, yo me levanté, tú te levantaste, él se levantó, ella se levantó, usted se levantó. Nosotros nos levantamos, vosotros os levantasteis, ellos se levantaron, ellas se levantaron, ustedes se levantaron. What we need to do now is start practicing it. The more we practice, it becomes second nature and you just carry on communicating. So, deberes. 1. I'd like you to conjugate 4 of these verbs as in the example above. If you are one of my students, I would like you to write them down, please. It helps, as I keep saying. 2. I'd like you to write a sentence with each of the verbs above. For example, ayer me levanté muy tarde. That's yesterday I got up very late. And 3. Translate the following sentences from English to Spanish. Okay. And if you look at this verb, for example, the English was fell in love, got up, retired, divorced, worried, moved, got up again. In English, they're just verbs, phrasal verbs, whatever, doesn't matter really. But in Spanish, they're all reflexive. And as I keep saying as well, I need you to concentrate on the grammar, on the reflexive verbs. For that reason, I don't want you to waste time finding words on Google Translate or your dictionary. For that reason, I'm giving you the vocabulary you need. You need this vocabulary. And I'm going to read them, but I'm going to read them only in Spanish. The English is there. Uno, de él. Dos, tarde. Tres, ayer. Cuatro, a las. Cinco, el sábado. Seis, hace 2 años. 7, temprano. 8, también. 9, 3 veces. 10, cuando. 11, suegra. 12, así que. 13, como de costumbre. 14, el domingo. Muy bien, chicos y chicas. Eso es todo por ahora. Espero que este vídeo os haya sido muy útil. Como siempre, un abrazo desde un soleado Blackpool, el pueblo donde vivo. Por si acaso, Blackpool no está en Estados Unidos. Blackpool está en el noroeste de Inglaterra, ¿sí? Lo digo porque hay gente que me escribe y me dice, ¿en qué parte de Estados Unidos estás? No, no estoy en Estados Unidos, estoy en Inglaterra. Me encanta Estados Unidos, pero me encanta más Inglaterra. Un abrazo, nos vemos. Adiós, adiós, adiós. Chao, chao, chao.